All right, I think we can probably get started. This is going to be recorded, so also I guess if people are coming in late, they'll be able to watch it, or if you want to share it with other people from your staff who can't make it, they can also watch it. It's going to be a little strange, so I'm able to speak. Everyone else will need to type any questions or comments, which you can see on the right-hand corner. I don't quite know what it looks like for you, but it looks like people have been messaging me, so folks know how to do that. Yeah, so to start off, my name is Francesco De Salvatore. I work here at the StoryCorp in Chicago office, and I'm a part of the community engagement staff here. We're a pretty small office. There's about 3 of us, and then we have some facilitators, which I'll talk more about their role, who work with us a couple times a month to help out with recordings here at the Cultural Center. So basically what we do here in Chicago is we record in the city of Chicago and also in select cities in the Midwest from time to time. And our role is really to, sorry, Laurel, you're not supposed to be able to see me. Sorry. I'll be showing a presentation. That's why. But yeah, so in Chicago, what we do is essentially record, like I said, in the city, in other cities across the Midwest. And it's really a way to sort of create a larger archive of Chicago and the area. And if you're not familiar with StoryCorp, we're an oral history project. And we record all across the country, not just in Chicago. And at this rate, we've probably recorded over 100,000 stories. We've been around for over 10 years now. We started with a MacArthur grant, and now we've kind of expanded beyond Brooklyn, which is where our main office is. Now we have our office here in Chicago. We have an office in Atlanta, and we have an office in San Francisco. So yeah. We're an oral history project. All our stories are going to be archived in the Library of Congress. And then some folks know us from our National Public Radio broadcast. We also have a local broadcast here in Chicago on WBZ. You can hear that every Friday between 4 and 6. Yeah, so to start off, I'm going to show you guys a animation that we do for PBS. This is one of our most recent ones. So I'm going to pull that up right now. You should be able to see it. So yeah, I'm going to play it and then we'll talk.
The conditions were pretty terrible. I once told someone that I learned to fight with a knife long before I learned how to ride a bicycle. And when you are grinding day after day after day, there is no room in you for hope. You don't even know it exists. There's nothing to aspire to except filling your hungry belly. That's how I was raised. When I was 12, a bookmobile came to the fields. And you have to understand that I wasn't allowed to have books because books are heavy. And when you're moving a lot, you have to keep things just as minimal as possible. So when I first saw this big vehicle on the side of the road and it was filled with books, I immediately stepped back. Fortunately, when the staff member saw me, kind of waved me in, said, "These are books and you could take one home." I'm like, "What's the catch?" And he explained to me there was no catch. Then he asked me what I was interested in. And the night before the bookmobile had come, in the camps, there was an elder who was telling us about the day that Mount Rainier blew up. So I told the bookmobile person that I was a little nervous about the mountain blowing up. And he said to me, "The more you know about something, the less you will fear it." and he gave me a book about volcanoes. And then I saw a book about dinosaurs. I said, oh, that looks neat. So he gave me a book about dinosaurs. And I took them home and I devoured them. I didn't just read them, I devoured them. And I came back in 2 weeks and had more questions. And he gave me more books, and that started it. That taught me that hope was not just a word, and it gave me the courage to leave the camps. That's where the books made the difference. By the time I was 15, I knew there was a world outside of the camps. I believed I could find a place in it, and I did.
Cool. So I hope that worked, that people could hear it. Yeah, so that is an example of what we do with our recordings. We release about 6 of those animations a year, and then our national broadcasts are weekly. So we have one once a week. So we have a lot more of our audio, which you can find on StoryCorp.org. One thing I will say is, so probably less than 1% of our stories end up, animated or on the air, because we're recording in high volume. I think at this rate, I think I may have mentioned this already, but we've recorded over 100,000 stories. So while they're not all broadcasted, they're definitely going to be archived if folks consent to it. And so what you just heard, it was about 3 or 4 minutes of audio. That's coming from a 40-minute interview, and that's typically how long our interviews are. They're going to be 40 minutes, and typically there's a facilitator, which is myself or someone else in our office will be with the storytellers. And our role is kind of to help facilitate, not necessarily guide what the conversation is going to look like. Now, what you heard was one person speaking. That sometimes happens at StoryCorp, but typically it's a conversation between 2 people. So usually those 2 people are having a conversation, and they're deciding what they want to talk about. And typically people will come in with questions that they want to ask one another, or we'll brainstorm from like 5 to 10 minutes before we go in about what they want to talk about also. And yeah, and my job and other folks' job is kind of facilitate it and kind of ask questions to help sort of fill in gaps if people miss moments in their story. Yeah, and then so those 40-minute recordings get archived. They may be edited down to what you saw too occasionally. Are there any questions so far? I should mention, if you want to ask a question, just feel free to write it up, and I should be able to see it at any time. Yeah, so that's kind of an overall view of StoryCorp, what we do with stories. So I can talk a little bit about what we do here in Chicago, and which probably will be of interest to everyone listening. So what we do here in Chicago is we, other than we have what we call public recording days on Thursdays and Saturday here at the Cultural Center. And that just means people can go online on StoryCorp.org and they can sign up for time slots on a Thursday or Saturday. Other than that, all our recordings are coming in through partnerships. So we partner with organizations in Chicago. We were just in Detroit, Michigan. We were partnering with an organization there. We were in Gary a couple weeks ago. So we partner with these organizations and we set up recording days. And there's no fee for this. It's a completely free service. And there's a number of things that we do with partners. So the first one, and it's probably probably involves at least coordinating, I guess, on our end, is to have folks come to our office here at the Cultural Center at Randolph in Michigan. And basically people will come, or organizations will kind of bring folks to record. And even before that recording day, we're working with the partners on, what kind of themes do they, how they want to organize these recordings around themes, what kind of stories do they want to get out, and eventually, what do they want to do with these stories other than, have them archived and possibly put on broadcast. Some organizations, they'll take the audio, they'll have a listing room event, which is basically where they'll edit the stories down. They may have someone on staff who can edit audio, and they'll present the stories to their community. They'll have facilitated discussion, they'll have food. Other people have done really sort of creative things, like create like web maps of neighborhoods, and you'll be able to click on the stories. Some people have like exhibits with the stories. So there's really kind of a free range of things you can do as a partner. On our end, when you partner with us, we want to be able to archive the story, and we also want to be able to consider it for production. But that's all we need from our end. And then we let organizations have the audio, and they can really do what they want with the audio. So like I said, folks can come here and record. We can do up to 6 recordings here at the Cultural Center. And that just means basically, we allot about an hour for each interview, 40 minutes for the actual recording, and then give or take 15, 20 minutes to fill out paperwork and take photos for the archive. And then we also go out. I was mentioning that we were in Detroit last week. We've been to Gary. We also go out in different neighborhoods in Chicago all the time, and we do recordings. And we just bring our equipment that we would use here out to a space to do recordings. And for that, we also can do up to six recordings. So that'd be about a 6-7 hour day for us. And then another thing we do is what we call a story kit, and that just means that we actually will train people on how to use a microphone and a recorder that we can rent out to you for free. We don't have many of these things. We only have 3 story kits, but people can use them if they, usually contact us. We range from a month to 3 months to reserve. So if it's sometime in the fall, you might be interested, a good time to reach out would be like, maybe now, just to make sure that you'll be able to use it. But essentially these stories, it's really up to the organization what they can, when they want to do the recordings. It allows for more flexibility. There's no like one day for the recordings. People can have these story kits for up to 4 weeks. And they also don't have to record 40-minute stories. They can do as little as 15 and, can go up to 40 if they would like. And this has been really successful for organizations that, want that flexibility and also just want to do a high volume of recordings in a short time span. Because, even though all our partnerships are, they're ongoing, so we can do, we can set up several recording days here at the Cultural Center, or if we come out to a space. But sometimes with our schedule, we'll probably only be able to set up one recording day 1 month, and it might be another 2 or 3 months until we can do that. So the story kits can be really helpful for that. And it's the same deal. Once you're done recording, you bring us the equipment, we archive the stories. They won't be considered for production, but the organization can have the audio, and they can also do what they want with it. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about that we do is the app. And I don't know how many folks have heard about it, but we released a StoryCorp app about a year ago, thanks to the TED Prize that we received. And this allows people to record their stories on smartphones or tablets. I believe I include a link, or maybe not. An email should have been sent out with a link to it, but it's basically storycorp.me. And that is the website for the app. And that's where we actually put all of the app stories on. So you can listen to hundreds of stories recorded with the app this past year. And basically it's kind of the same deal as StoryKit. People can record whenever, wherever with it. They can record anywhere from like 15 to 40 minutes. And then, and then that's also archived, and those stories sometimes end up on our broadcast. And this also might be of interest to you guys if you're interested. So this is the website I was talking about. It's storycorp.me. And this is an example of an organization that wanted to use the app, but they wanted to kind of compile their stories into one place. So there's two ways. So they basically created one account with the app, and it was under NPiece, and they basically would record stories under this account, so that when you can literally visit this web page, storycorp.me/user/NPiece, and listen to all the stories they recorded. Other times, there's been classes that we've worked with that have used this, and they didn't want to make one account because there was several students, and it would have been too confusing. So everyone had their own account, but then in order to be able to search the stories under one place, people, once they record it, they can insert keywords that you can see right here. And so when you search, when you search a keyword, all these stories will come up. And so that's another way that organizations or our partners have used the app. And it's kind of cool to have your own, page that, if other people want to see it, you kind of have a place where all the stories are compiled together. So are there any questions so far about anything I've said? I know I've covered a lot, and so feel free to ask any questions about what I just asked or about what I just explained. Cool. So someone asked, can we download and edit the interviews if we record them with the app? Yeah, so you can download the audio, and you can also, once you download it, you can edit it in different editing softwares. Ooh, let's do. Sorry about that. Yeah. And what I will say is, if anyone is interested in partnering with StoryCorp, I'll wait to say that. There's someone just asked, is there a standard release form for interviewees? So yeah, that's a good question. So if we're doing the recordings, so other than the app, there is paperwork involved with the recordings. The app, you don't need to do any paperwork for it. It's all done on the app. You just click yes, basically. But if you're doing the recording, if you're doing a recording with us at the Cultural Center, or if we're coming out with our equipment, people are going to fill out a couple sheets of paper. The first is going to be a data sheet. Those are just questions about people's identity, their address, so that we can send them the archive number, and also just for us to kind of see who we're interviewing and see if we're actually capturing a diverse range of voices. So after they fill that out, we do the recording, and then when we're done, we have folks think about how they want StoryCorp to use it. And there's 3 different release forms they can sign. They can sign a general release, which basically means that they're going to be archived in the Library of Congress. They could be up for production for NPR, WBZ, and that's the general. If they don't feel comfortable with the production side of it, they can just do a archive only, where it's only going to be archived, and they leave with a CD of it. And then the last one is a no release, where we basically get rid of the file, and the participants just leave with a CD. Now, if someone's below the age of 18, they'll need a parent guardian signature for those release forms. But yeah, other than that, that's the only paperwork that goes with the interviews. If you rent out a story kit, which is what I was talking about earlier, where basically we train you how to use one of our mics, all that paperwork is kind of left with you. So when you give us back the equipment, all that paperwork has to be kind of compiled and completed. Yeah, and then someone asked a question. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. The next one that someone asked was, can we use a logo for our own promotional material? Yeah, you can use our logo if we're a partner. Yeah, that's not an issue. When we do become partners, really that just involves signing a partner agreement form, which isn't that complicated. There are some limitations on how people can use the audio. The one that really kind of the really only kind of requirement I would say is that we ask that people do not post more than 8 minutes of the audio. So that would require people editing down the interviews to at least 8 minutes. Yeah, so I hope that answered that. Leslie just asked, do you provide any assistance or referrals for editing? So when we partner with folks, because of our small staff, we can only promise probably one edit of a batch of stories. Sometimes we can do more. It just depends on our schedule and what's going on. But other than that, partners can feel free to edit the audio. A lot of times people will have interns that are coming in with audio editing skills. One thing I will say that is, in the fall, we are hoping to host our first audio editing workshop for partners, because this is a question we always get. Because a lot of times, yeah, people don't know how to edit audio, and they're kind of left with this full audio or this 40-minute recording and don't know what to do with it. So in the fall, we're hoping to host an audio editing workshop, so folks would acquire basic skills on how to edit audio with a free audio editing software called Audacity. Along with one thing I didn't mention that kind of relates to this audio editing workshop, a workshop we do right now that is helpful for organizations when they're getting ready for a recording day, is we'll do a storytelling interviewing workshop. So everyone that's going to be involved in the recordings, whether it's the interviewer or the interviewee, they're going to go through this workshop, and it kind of it preps them for what StoryCorp is, what the recording structure is going to look like, and then also have them brainstorm questions and practice telling each other stories, so that when we sit down to do the recording, they're really prepped, and I think the stories are even more vivid and rich. So yeah. Cool. Cool. So I'm not seeing any new questions. If anyone, so I guess in terms of next steps, I think if anyone's interested in, someone's asked me a question. Do all interviewees and interviewers have to attend the workshop? Or so the workshop is optional. That's just something that we'll offer to folks sometimes, but you don't have to go through the workshop to do the recordings. It's just helpful because we've partnered with people, and then we'll get to a recording day and the participants have no idea what's going on. A lot of times organizations, they're really busy, they're doing other things, and then they realize the recording day's tomorrow, and then they haven't really told people what's going on. So, and that ends up not being really a good experience for anyone. So the workshop is helpful for making sure everyone is on the same page. Someone just asked, are we still considered a partner if the only thing we do is send you our complete interviews for archiving? So when it comes to when it comes to partnering, basically, if we're not, so we can't archive stories that either, so we only archive stories that we record or are recorded on the story kit or the app. If it's recorded on the app, you don't have to send us anything. The stories are automatically archived right after you're done recording on the phone, or on a tablet. With the story kit, you have to bring us back the equipment, of course, and then also all the paperwork and then the audio files. And then if we're doing the recordings, that's something that we archive that on our own. But if you are recording stories with your own equipment, that's not something that we're not going to archive those stories. And the reason that we don't do that is because there's a certain format that StoryCorp has to follow, and also there's a certain audio quality that we have to maintain. So if we have folks recording on other equipment that we're not aware of, or are different than like smartphones or tablets or the microphones we loan out, then it can be confusing. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Okay, cool. So I hope that answered that question. If there are no more questions, kind of to conclude, in terms of next steps, if you're interested in partnering with us, I believe, I'm not sure if Alex sent out my email, but my email address is oh, here, I'll answer this quick question before I get to that. Someone just asked, are there only 3 kits, and do they need to be picked up from the office? So we only have 3 kits on hand, and they do need to be picked up at the office because we have to facilitate a training for the story kits, and then they have to be brought back to us. So yeah. One thing I will say is also in terms of scheduling, it depends on our schedule, but a lot of times we can come out and do a storytelling workshop in addition to to training someone on the kit. So that's something that we could do also. But we wouldn't typically come out to just do a training on a story kit. Yeah. So what I was saying before is, if you have any questions, if you want to partner, if there's just something else that comes to mind later that you want to ask me, you can reach me at my email, which is FDESALVATORE@storycorp.org. And then I do have an office number that I don't remember off the top of my head. But what I can do is I can basically send out all my contact information, and if you have any questions or if you want to partner, you can reach me. But yeah, are there any other questions before we kind of wrap up? Okay, cool. So I think that's, yeah, I'm not seeing any questions, but okay. Well, thanks for coming in. I know it's a weird experience because I'm the only one that can speak. But yeah, hopefully I'll hear from some of you. Yeah, I think it'd be great to partner with libraries. It seems to be a central place for a lot of communities. So I think it'd be really important to, to work with you guys and record stories in your communities. So yeah, hopefully I'll hear from you soon. Thanks for listening, and yeah, have a good day.
Oh, so this is Alex from Homer. I don't know if anyone is still interested in kind of working together to see if we can get this going and trying to publicize this to the public. But if you do, if you could email me or reach out to me, my email address is alex, ALEX, @homerlibrary.org. Thanks.